Hi, I'm Mike with the School of Self Reliance, and today we're just out in the backyard and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about prepping and survival preparation. Most people think about survival and they think about prepping. The two are different. A survivalist and a prepper are two different creatures. A survivalist is somebody who can go out and survive with a minimum amount of gear, and they generally prepare with that concept in mind of a minimal amount of gear and go out and survive long term or indefinitely without a whole lot of anything. A prepper is a person who believes in stocking the castle, digging a moat, and sheltering in place, and that's preparation. Maybe they have a bug out location, but it still involves I've got a prepped castle, and I'm going to go to the castle, and I'm going to defend the castle, and I'm going to live and die in the castle. A survivalist has a much more mobile philosophy. Now, the two concepts can overlap. There are people who are survivalists by nature who also prep, and there are preppers who also have survival skills and approach it with an overlapping philosophy. But for the most part, I find that most people keep those concepts separate, and that's a real shame. I personally am more of a survivalist. My wife is more of a prepper. As a matter of fact, she's nearly cut and dry a prepper, and I'm nearly cut and dry a survivalist. I would rather, bug out, be mobile, be away from everybody, go on the move, survive long term, wilderness or whatever, urban, you name it, it doesn't matter to me. I'm very fluid in my strategies for survival. My wife is very much of, she doesn't want to scratch a cat hole in the woods to use as a latrine. She wants to shelter in place and defend the castle. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with either one of those philosophies, because there really isn't, but both have to be fluid enough and both have to be willing to change enough that you can overlap your philosophies. The other thing that most people fail with survival or prepping is they fail to prepare to prepare. They don't have the mindset, nor do they think about it correctly. When you're prepping, it seems like a simple answer. Go out and buy a bunch of food, buy a bunch of weapons, so on and so forth, fortify the homestead. When you're doing survival mentality, people say, well, grab a bug out bag, and so on and so forth. Stock it up with supplies and you're ready to go. Well, that really isn't the case. You need to think about your preps and think about your survival preparations, whether you are a prepper or survivalist, whether you're bugging out or sheltering in place, bugging in, doesn't matter. You need to approach both philosophies from a right premise. And that premise is that it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. Basic human needs do not change. Okay? If you're in the zombie apocalypse, a nuclear strike scenario, it doesn't matter. Situation X, whatever it is that causes everything to go to hell in a handbasket. The basic human needs don't change, so you need to keep those first in your mind when you're thinking about either survival or prepping. You need to think about those first. And those basic human needs are food, water, fire, because fire, I've got this equal mark here so that you'll know there's something different about this. Fire provides us warmth. It provides us a way to disinfect water. It provides us the ability to cook our food. Fire also fits into security because it keeps us safe. It wards off predators and so on, mosquitoes and whatnot. So food, water, fire, shelter, security, medicine, and hygiene. No matter what the circumstance is, these basic needs will never change scenario to scenario. The only thing that will change is the order in which these become important. It may be at some point much more important to have shelter than it is to have food. If you're in the high desert or low desert, then shelter and water would take priorities over food, at least immediately. Medical, if nobody's injured and there's no chances of anybody being injured anytime soon, it may be lower on the priority list. Fire in the desert may be lower on the priority list, although it gets pretty damn cold in the desert at night. But the only thing that will change is the order in which you need these things and the way in which you provide them. With security, in the zombie apocalypse, You may need a walled fortress for security. You may need a gun for security. You may just need fire as your security efforts. The way that you provide these things is really going to change scenario to scenario, and level of importance will change. So the way you provide them and in what order you provide them, that's fluid. It will change scenario to scenario. And most people, when they make their preps or they make their survival plans, they really don't think this through, and they don't keep these basic concepts in mind, that you will always have to provide for every member of your group these basic needs. You'll have to provide them in a different fashion for each different scenario, and level of importance will change depending on the scenario. Now, one other thing about fire that I put that equal sign there for. Not only does fire equal, like I said, sanitized water, cooking of food, security, it also equals warmth when it's cold outside, so that's yet another key with the fire. But under fire, you should also start thinking about, if you're in a hot environment, you also need the ability to keep cool. So regulate your body temperature really is what that should be, whether it's keeping warm or keeping cool. If it's rainy outside, certainly fire is going to help you. So whatever preps you make, no matter what, you should approach them from this basic premise and think about the order of how you provide these things according to the scenario that you prep for. Me, I don't like to get hung up on scenarios. I like to just say scenario X, whatever that is. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. All I know is that there's not a cop on every corner, there's no ambulances, there's no hospital, the grocery store isn't open, and the lights are out. And there's probably, under those circumstances, bad people looking to do bad things to me and my family. So I just look at that generalized scenario with any preparations or survival mentality or plans that I make. But keeping these things in mind when you make your preps, when you make your survival plans, that's first and foremost. I actually teach this in my classes. I have a general preppers class and survival class called Emergency Scenarios. And this is one of the things that you have to get through your head when you're making your preps. Remember these things. I don't care if you have to put them on a flashcard. You should commit them to memory. And every action that you take in an emergency scenario should be centered around these things. If you've got a small group of people and you're going to go out scouting for resources, you need to be thinking about security. Is it safe to leave the people that are with you, a small group of them behind, while some of you go out and scout? Is it safer to take the whole group with you? Probably not. Is the area that you're leaving them in secure? Are you risking yourself unnecessarily by going out? Think these things through. Think of each one of these center points whenever you're making a survival or a prepper plan. And as long as you've done that and you remain fluid in your mind on how you provide them and in what level of importance, and be fluid enough to change your thinking according to the scenario, you'll usually be much better off. But I promise you, if you keep these things in your head and you always look at them, change the order, like I said, change the level of importance and how you provide them. But no human circumstance exists on earth that any of these things changes. You will always need these things. You will always need to be able to provide medical care. Somebody may twist an ankle, have a mechanical injury, a cut, whatever. You'll always need to be able to provide medical care. A fever, a cold, anything like that will put you down and out of the game. A little bit of cold medicine will solve that. A little bit of pre-thought and planning. Learning edible plants, so that if you're a survivalist and you're out in the woods, learn the edible plants, learn medicinal plants. Keep a book with you if you can't remember them all, so that you can provide medical. Some of those same plants will help you provide hygiene, because without hygiene, you're going to get sick. If you crap too close to your camp and don't cover it up, you're going to attract flies. Those flies are going to crawl on your food. They're going to make you sick. If you don't take a bath, if you don't smoke bathe, if you don't clean yourself in water, brush your teeth regularly, you're going to get sick. You're going to get an abscess. And an abscess will kill you, if left untreated long term. So you're thinking about the hygiene. Your shelter, I see lots of people, no thought in it. I'll shelter in the house. I'll build a shelter when I get out there. But they never practice building a shelter. They never throw up a basha or bivy shelter. They don't own a tent, but they say they'll get one when they need one. Well, that's not prepping at all. The greatest prep that you can have is a prepared mind. That is the greatest survival tool and prep that any human being can have. The thing that caused us to climb to the top of the food chain is what's located right here between our ears. The knowledge that you put into your head is the thing that will save you more often than not. As a matter of fact, the more you put into your brain will save you more often than a gun. The more you know, the better off you are and the less things you need. But the more you know, the better off you are and more able you are to provide these things. Because like I said, they never change. You always need them. You have to have them. So commit those things to memory and base all of your preps and everything off of them. And you've got a lot better chances. Again, I'm Mike, the School of Self Reliance. If you like what we do, watch our videos, like us on Facebook, share our videos. Thanks for watching.